All right, so my view about public opinion relates to YouTube a lot. I never, well, definitely not since I've been 30 or anything well, I've never seen myself as a public opinion influencer. There was a time in my late teens or early 20s that I might have, hoped to do that. You think you're going to influence with your opinion. But I don't even know if it went on that long because I got online, bulletin boards with, around 13 or something, which would have been 84 or something. And, you learn that this fantasy of changing other people's minds is just not usually how it works. What's really seems to be going on is more a matter of, sharing opinion. In other words, I like thinking about things, pondering them, philosophy, in other words, loosely speaking. I like finding out what other people think about and discussing those thoughts with them. I would say my role is not really to change the public opinion, but to just take part in it, and to learn ideas and whatnot. That's what I get from you. That's what I figure people are getting from me. So when people are like, because there's often comments like, well, you should sell your case better. Like when I was talking about Sargon a few videos ago, um, somebody was like, well, this doesn't appeal to me very much. This is not a good idea. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Information, here's how I feel about Sargon of Akkad. Um, and to just assume that I'm trying to sell them something. It's like there's more than being a consumer in life, you guys, right? So this is just taking part. And, it's kind of like the way I see it is like if I watch a popular TV show, and I'm watching it from episode one before it's popular, um, and it becomes popular, you could say I'm helping to make it popular, one viewer at a time. But it's not like if I see a show and go, that show should be popular and start watching it, that's not going to make it popular. Just my one viewing of it. So all I can do is watch the show because I like it or not. I can't say, oh, that show's well intentioned. I find it boring, but I'm going to watch it to help it become popular, right? And I don't really think arguing other people should find the show good is super effective. So when we're talking about what we think of the show, similar to everything else, even when it's a more important subject, I don't think my opinion on politics is going to have any direct effect because the way I think about politics seems to me a few levels of conclusions away from like the common way of thinking about things. Um, and also, I'm just finding that it's there's so much projection on the conservative side that they're all about how aggrieved they are and how outraged and people have think bad things about white people. It's like this weird projection of what they said they were bothered about by SJWs is really what they're doing. Well, recently, though, on a personal level, you know, I've been through various steps in the last 7 years in my grief process, and I felt very, very bad the whole time, but not every second. And while that's gone on, I did working hard therapy or whatever. I just focused on work and surviving, moving to a new place, having to get things going in time, you know, to keep a roof over our heads and stuff. So, um, and then part of me is like feeling spoiled to be so sad or cynical about the overall nature of life. And then, curious, this is my front yard. Um, now, I'm not secure. I don't have a huge amount of wealth. Living in Maine, this house on the lake is a very reasonable price by like California standards or where else I would have had to go to try to get software engineering work. And the piece of property being on this pond is worth more, than the house that's on it, according to the assessor. It's like twice as much or something. I live in a little cabin, but this is all I've ever wanted was to live in nature in the woods. It didn't even occur to me to be on a pond, but see, they got ponds all over. There's just no being from California, it's truly mind-blowing how much water there really is. I mean, I've seen it on maps before. I kind of knew that was the case, but I still didn't get it until I lived here. And man, like my first house had a well where it was getting, the tank would get overflowing. It would just dump water right on the ground every like 45 seconds. Half liter of water, whatever. I was like, I thought there's something was broke. But it was just because, you know, I guess don't totally see why they, there's pressure not from the pump or something. I don't know. Anyway, I spit water out. So, turned out to be normal. Still kind of weird. But anyway, growing up, California is like being from the planet Doom. So my feeling bad about the world, though, is not directly feeling bad about myself, because I feel about my own imperfections that, you know, I see many mistakes that I've made by my value system of what I value the most in people and things. You know, I'm not the best person in the world according to my value system, just applied honestly. But none of that makes me feel like bad about myself or like that I'm uncool, because I think coolness is, everybody has their own idea of coolness, and what's cool is to pursue it. So to me, is it cool to like model trains? Well, if you really love model trains and you just love them and you be building them and doing all that stuff because you just love them, then it's cool. If you're faking it because there's a, you know, pretty girl or club and you're trying to get in that club, you know, by doing what they like, you know, I'm gonna learn this thing really well so I can impress them, then that's not cool. If you're doing it to impress yourself, then you're cool. And so, you know, that's one of the reasons I like and am willing to talk to people that I disagree or even dislike, because in the realm of ideas, I want to find people that are honest. You know, the only thing important to me in terms of discussing your idea is if it really is honestly your idea and you're not just um, throwing it out there to impress. You know, to virtue signal like conservatives do about race realism and things. You know, to be edgy. Well, look how edgy I am. You know, they say all kinds of things they don't necessarily believe, and that's not cool. Now, what if you have a really terrible idea, but you do truly believe in it, like, you know, being a Nazi, a true old school and back in the day Nazi? Well, I have a couple things to think about that. First of all, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the concept of cool is no longer, you know, relevant. Like, say, the killer in Natural Born Killers, who's that actor that played? You know, was he cool? Well, cool is like, is Dracula cool? Is like, you know, in the real world, it just becomes, who cares, right? But two, about real Nazis, is they're a bunch of big fake imposers, right? For example, they cared so much about their hating the Jews, but then when their buddy, you know, turns out he's half Jewish, they look the other way, you know. In other words, they just use fascists and conservatives to a lesser degree, not conservatives like Edmund Burke conservatism, but, you know, these reactionaries that we have, the reactionary types that really shouldn't be called conservative, but we don't have another word right now because all the conservatives have become so reactionary. You know, they always just are using fronts and stuff. They say they don't like Bill Clinton, because he was a creep. They obviously don't care. They didn't like him for other reasons they use as an excuse. So I would say that's not cool because they're just faking. But to the degree that is possible, at least in a fiction like Natural Born Killers, to have somebody that's totally into this violent destruction, well, that's where I draw the line. That's where it's not that because I don't like you that I don't want to discuss things with you. It's because you're a violent creep, and it's really dealing with you is more a matter of law and order. But it's a long distance to that, right? Like, just having an offensive idea doesn't put you in that realm. You know, I mean, as I've said before, you know, racism, I think it's terrible, but it's not as bad as kicking babies in the face. You know, if you are nonviolent, you can have some pretty ideas that are dangerous in the sense that in the hands of a violent person, they help justify and amplify. Um, that's not the case if you aren't violent. So there's an interesting gray area to discuss in that. But pretty much I've always erred on the side of um, wanting to have those discussions, if only to find out how other people think. I consider myself an attitude collector and collecting a collection of other people's attitudes, not for myself, for my collection. And for example, I had known about young Earth creationism since I was young. I'd heard tell of it. I knew there were certain people. I'd watched some TV evangelism, come in contact with a couple people that might say it, but it seemed pretty fringe. I didn't know there were so many functional, everyday people that believed in young Earth creationism until YouTube. And it wouldn't have taken specifically YouTube. I mean, it would become obvious on the internet in general, but it was through YouTube. And there's a lot of ideas like that that I really didn't know the intersection of, like who became popular atheists on YouTube was people that that had contact. Like Aaron Ra, who had gone to seminary, or the Amazing Atheist, who grew up in a town where people took you know religion seriously still, but he didn't. This kind of reaction to, and it's that relationship to, um, you know, to sort of anti-progressive, anti-progressive reactionary among people who really, by a lot of definitions, they consider themselves progressive. I like that. Well, I'm not racist, and they're not. And it's anyway. It's not that I can put my finger on and describe it like I've successfully analyzed it all. But these little groups, these cognitive demographics, um, I learn a lot um, through discussion and just watching the kinds of channels. That are just straightforward talking from the less scripted, the better. Sometimes you can learn from scripts, um, from scripted content. Not so much from shows, but um, and when I get to converse with the people making those videos, then I can probe and scan and shine my laser and get some fine detail. And to me, that's what the point of this is. And in terms of ideas, it's like I wonder if, talking so much about politics does make it seem like you're trying to affect it. Like, you really can't just say where you stand. Now, since politics, there's new news, I'm not saying I was thinking I should avoid talking about that. But on the other hand, there's a lot of other things going on. Like this idea recently where I was realizing that in spite of, the failures and pain of life, it doesn't make me feel like, oh, I'm a worthless person, because I'm just a biofilm already. I mean, what am I? We're a bunch of monkeys. What are we supposed to live up to? Our own standards? No, it's amazing we have standards beyond what we are. That's an accomplishment. Good for us. And yet, I realize other people throughout their whole lives, most other people, never outgrow worrying if they're cool. Right? Like, I could still worry, hey, am I going to be accepted in this group or that group or whatever. I don't worry much, because it's like, well, if I'm not, if I go to the, organization and try to help out and I can't get along with anybody, probably stop going or something, or just ignore it because I think it's good, whatever. But, I could feel, what I'm saying is I could feel like, geez, I hope they like me down at the clean up the park club or whatever. But it's not a matter of still waffling over like you do when you're in your early preteens or early teens, where, am I cool? Is this cool? Well, why did I get that reaction? Maybe they aren't right about me. this kind of worry that you have to go through as your brain's forming as a child. I just figured you kind of grow out of that, and then you are what you are. But that's how it goes if you follow what you think is cool. But if you're too afraid to do the things, it's like you do think that the coolest thing in the world is those model trains, but you never take time to invest any time or money in it. Then you'll always be wondering if you're cool or not, if you've done the things that other people told you would make you cool and seem cool, and you would get accolades for being cool, and you wore the right things in the right seasons, and how much, and when I realized that, which is an obvious thing, like everybody always says that, but I mean, I don't really think that way normally, but when I realized and saw, wait, maybe this is really what's going on, like the big bulk of the curve is in this worrying they might not be cool people sphere. It seems like it explains so much behavior, like why the advertisements sell this attitudes that if you have in real life, people kick you down for. Like, you should do everything and be an artist and go for it. But if you go and do that and show everybody your new painting, half the people will go, oh, you better keep a day job, Or, SUV, show it in nature. Look, we love nature. The EPA regulation is ridiculous. The same groups of people, the same market. And, yeah, the severe cognitive dissonance that you seem to see in the behavior, in the mass group behavior, not on an individual level, oddly enough, but in the mass behavior, it's like, oh, maybe it's like a magnifying glass to what's really going on. There's a lot of resemblance to people wondering, what their self-worth is, what the rank of their crimes is, and what it says about them, and probably, related to what I'd more traditionally say, which is like, we're just human beings, that we have standards for what's great that we want to live up to, and we see other people achieve those standards, and sometimes it seems like they have no flaws. Of course they always do, but you shouldn't really sit around worrying about that, because if you are honest about what you value as like a good person or cool person or accomplished person, there's going to be other people that have satisfied more of those constraints, and they also have those ideas, different ones though, and there's somebody else that fits those, and it might even be you, because there's rich people who's like, oh, I wish I had no cares like that surf guy. I wish I was brave like him, just lived on the beach. And so it's really not worth worrying about things on that level. And I mean, I've been really, I've wondered the value of life a lot in the last 7 years, just in general. And from the point of view that for my own personal thing, even though there's a lot of great things, I want to love what's going on, and I do, and love the people around me, and I do. Just because of losing June, life, no matter what, is a net negative in the sense that no matter what would happen, total security, didn't have to worry about stuff, won the lottery, nothing was going to make it worth it. So, of course, they're not related, so that's another thing I've been thinking about, is like, how do you really assess these judgments, because it's not really like a running sum total. But anyway, even in my darkest times, and I'm thinking, life isn't worth it, can't be worth it. It wasn't from a self-doubt of my mistakes make me worthless. And I think people might be worried that their mistakes make them worthless. Alright, I gotta go. This is longer than I meant to do. I kind of like doing these in the afternoon, but take a little break, instead of stretching. And I want to make copy doing this, but it's supposed to be 10 minutes, 20. But, okay, before I go, let's see if there Barklord. Puppet Image Ltd. Shut up, Piero. What do you know? Puppet Image Ltd. You don't know what you're talking about. Puppet Image Ltd. Stop talking. Hey, Puppet Image Ltd. I don't get your joke. I don't get it. Is it like there's a tractor beam? And when I talk, people have to listen. So I should think about one.